Fort William First Nation leaders get an update on the swing bridge. Some sharp criticism of the government's handling of the Ring of Fire. And the world mourns the loss of Nelson Mandela.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. The chief of the Fort William First Nation says she was expecting to hear more specifics during a meeting today with CN Rail. Chief Georgianne Morisseau was hoping today's meeting would provide a date that the James Street Swing Bridge would be fully reopened. Instead, she learned it will be at least 3 more months before they find out what the future holds for the century-old structure. Cheryl Holmes has more.
Chief of the Fort William First Nation, Georgianne Morisseau, was hoping to find out when the James Street Swing Bridge would be officially opened. She says the meeting with CN Rail was positive overall, but she was hoping to hear more.
I think from Fort William's perspective, we were expecting or anticipating a little bit more in terms of a commitment or a definite timeline as to when we can expect the bridge to be opened.
CN provided an engineering report on the state of the bridge. They determined its carrying capacity has dropped from 15 tons to 8 tons, but they couldn't provide more specific details about the state of the bridge.
What they're currently waiting for is a consultant's report that will outline specifically what the issues and damages are to the bridge and what and if any type of remediation is going to take place thereafter.
That report isn't expected to be brought back to the community for at least 3 months. Morisseau says now she'll have to plan around that by contacting emergency services, public transit, and the city to ensure safety in the area.
The Highway 61, and that intersection and junction coming off onto Chippewa Road is becoming increasingly more dangerous now that it is winter. The speed of that highway is very, very high. And then again, you're having the traffic is more congested now around that intersection. So we need to make sure that the vehicle traffic is safe.
The good news, however, is that CN Rail has mentioned the pedestrian crossing is likely to be open sometime in the very near future. Cheryl Holmes, TBT News.
The next 5 years have been lost for the proposed Ring of Fire mining development. That's according to a lawyer and strategist who presented his critical view of a project he feels will be on life support for years to come. Bill Gallagher was one of the speakers today at a conference on the role of government policy in sustainable mining development. So is Mattawa Tribal Council negotiator Bob Ray. Dennis Ward has more.
The government got wind.
Bill Gallagher admits he's cynical and he doesn't mind calling it as he sees it. He believes the province got wind Cliff's Natural Resources was pulling out, and that's why they rushed out the recently announced Ring of Fire Development Corporation. And Gallagher says he can't see the federal government coming to the table with significant dollars until a key benchmark is met.
Nothing's going to happen in the foreseeable future until there are these demonstrable signs of progress that natives are on side with written agreements and endorsements. Otherwise, we're still hearing sound bites, silos, and posturing.
Gallagher personally feels there'll be no development in the Ring of Fire for at least 10 years, and he says the elephant in the room is the Anishinaabe Nation.
To pretend that you can develop a major play in the central lowlands of northern Ontario without involving the expansive footprint of Nain, given that you're going to need hydro transmission lines and access roads and who knows, maybe even a port, railroads. Nain's a significant player, and it's delusional to think that you can do this deal with just 9 First Nations.
Bob Ray represents those 9 First Nations and contends the Ring of Fire will still happen. It's just when that's up for debate. Ray believes the decision by Cliffs to halt its project was a boardroom move based on money and nothing the province could control.
The underlying reality is minerals don't go stale in the ground. They're not going to suddenly disappear in the night. They're there, and companies that are in a position to develop them and others that are in a position to help to build the infrastructure will do that.
Ray says the Ring of Fire is about much more than minerals in the ground. He believes this is also about a new deal for First Nations, one that improves health, education, and infrastructure. Dennis Ward, TBT News.
The Conservative majority on a House of Commons committee has shot down an NDP proposal to have Ontario officials appear to testify about the Ring of Fire development. Premier Kathleen Wynne is in Ottawa today to meet with Prime Minister Stephen Harper over the stalled multi-billion-dollar project. The federal Conservatives expressed great interest in the Ring of Fire earlier this year, but appear to have washed their hands of the project since Cliffs Natural Resources put work on its chromite operation on hold. The Prime Minister declined to comment on the Cliffs decision, calling the Ring of Fire a provincial responsibility. Yesterday, the Natural Resources Committee went behind closed doors to assess New Democrat Claude Gravel's motion on hearing from Ontario officials about federal help in developing the Ring of Fire. Sources say the government majority voted down the motion. The mayors of Northern Ontario's 5 largest cities have identified a number of key areas they'd like to see the province focus on at the Northern Ontario Leaders Forum being held today in Timmins. Infrastructure, energy, workplace development, working relationships, and revenue sharing are just some of the items on the agenda. Thunder Bay Mayor Keith Hobbs says the meeting is tied to helping support the government's Northern Ontario growth plan. He's hoping the meeting will provide for some meaningful dialogue with the various ministers in attendance. Hobbs says he plans on stressing the importance of energy security and intermodal freight transportation, issues he believes are crucial.
Energy generation and transmission is key for the mining, and that's going to be a big push for us again. So just a repeat of what we've been hammering away at, for years, and we're hopefully going to make a dent.
Hobbs, along with the mayors of Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, Timmins, and North Bay, will spend the night discussing a plan of action before presenting it to Premier Kathleen Wynne on Friday. An overnight fire has caused extensive damage to an unoccupied residence in the city's East End. Smoke and flames were visible when fire crews arrived on the scene, and it took several hours to bring the blaze under control. An aerial unit also had to be brought in to prevent the spread of the flames to an adjacent house and apartment unit. Residents of those buildings had to be evacuated, and a city bus was dispatched to the scene so they could stay warm. The cause of the fire is still unknown. A 23-year-old woman is facing charges following an early morning stabbing incident. It happened around 2 this morning on North Vicar Street. A 19-year-old man had to be taken to hospital after he was stabbed twice in the chest. His injuries are described as being non-life-threatening. The woman involved has been charged with aggravated assault. Indoor soccer teams that have been idle for a couple of weeks because of the closure of the Thunder Bay Sports Dome should be back in action by Monday. Renovations forced the closure of the facility on November 25th, and while construction crews worked extended hours in an effort to expedite the process, the work has taken longer than expected. That's resulted in some frustration for local soccer leagues, as the Sports Dome is the only indoor soccer facility in the city. But while soccer action will resume Monday, access to other sports facilities, such as the driving range, will be delayed until work can be completed in other areas of the dome. Thunder Bay has become the first city in Northern Ontario to bring a tele-home care program into action. This will be the 5th such program in all of Ontario. The program is being run by the Northwest Community Care Access Centre. It provides patients with chronic conditions the option of receiving medical attention at home without having to visit a hospital. Using a simple device that's loaned to patients in the program, they can wake up in the morning and run simple tests themselves. Then a registered nurse will review the results and provide remote monitoring and health coaching sessions.
The program will empower people to take control of their health and to know how to look after themselves. So that in itself will reduce their need to access the emergency room or their need to have to be admitted to hospital.
The program has been running for 4 weeks and already has 12 of their 160 spots filled. Well, it's a ceremony that recognizes the achievements of people who have made the decision to return to school. Over 150 students were presented with graduation certificates today that will now enable them to apply at post-secondary institutions. As Courtney Rutherford reports, it was an exciting day not only for the students, but for Confederation College as a whole.
It was quite nerve-wracking. Everybody was really receptive, very welcoming. So within the first few days, I felt very comfortable.
Trisha Patterson is talking about her experience returning to school after 13 years. Patterson, along with 150 students, are all celebrating their completion of academic upgrading courses. The program offers an individualized approach to learning that focuses on mathematics, communications, biology, chemistry, and physics. Graduates can now gain direct entry into post-secondary programs and apprenticeships at the college.
It's brilliant. It's the best day of the school year. We are so proud of all the work that our students put into every day that they come to school, and it's lovely to be able to recognize that in a formal way.
Each year, about 85 people graduate from the ACE program, which means they have received their grade 12 equivalent. Confederation College President Jim Matter says a large number of these students go on to enroll in a variety of college programs and have proven to be very successful in their chosen fields of study.
You know, many people who will be marking their accomplishments today never thought that they would complete high school equivalency. Often dropped out sometime in the past and had other things occur in their lives. And to me, this is not just completing high school and working their way through it. It's generating optimism and hope and a future for them as well.
Courtney Rutherford, TBT News.
The Mackenzie Street organization has launched its annual campaign to raise some much-needed money, and the prize up for grabs might have some people revving their engines. Our Kids Count has officially launched their 9th annual Motors and Muscles draw. The grand prize is a 2014 Harley-Davidson motorcycle worth $29,000. Proceeds from the draw will help fund a dozen different programs. They range from community kitchens and parenting support groups to life skills and family counseling. Our Kids Count Executive Director Gladys Behringer says without the money from the raffle, they wouldn't be able to continue what they do.
We have over 300 families that have participated in a year, and children probably just over 200 as well. Some families will come and go, so the numbers do vary. So each kitchen can have anywhere from 8 to 10 participants in it. So if it's children, it would be, could be children, it could be teens, it could be older adults, it could be men, whatever population is wanting to use the kitchen.
650 tickets are being sold. It can be purchased at Our Kids Count, Halfway Motors, or the Harley-Davidson store. The winning ticket will be drawn on August 24th of next year. The holiday season brings with it plenty of holiday spirit, and the Thunder Bay Children's Aid Society is hoping residents show that spirit by generously supporting their annual Christmas Wishes gift tree campaign. The program allows community members to place Santa for children and youth in need. Christmas trees are set up at all city Walmart locations. Each tree displays a set of gift tags that represent underprivileged children with a name and a wish list.
We are encouraging the public to come in, pick up a tag, go into the store, purchase a gift, go through the checkout, put the tag back in the bag, and then put it under the tree. And then we have volunteers coming on a regular basis. They will take the gifts back to the agency where they're wrapped and then would be delivered to either to families who provide them to their own children or to children that we're involved with directly.
There's a lot of families that don't really have anything. So when the truckload shows up and they expect like maybe a box of stuff, and then the trunk just keeps on, where it's like box after box in the box, the look on the families, and we have parents crying because they never expect that people would be so generous to give so much.
The Thunder Bay CAS is hoping to give gifts to more than 400 children this holiday season. Donations will be accepted right up until Christmas Eve, when families like the Lions will distribute them to homes in need.
Speaking of giving so much, Fiona, Mother Nature sure gave us more than enough snow, but at least we're going to get a break for a little bit.
And I think most of us are going to need it to soak those aching muscles after shoveling that snow. With that wind, it did make the snow feel quite heavy and quite well packed. But we had strong winds throughout the day, and that's what most people probably noticed, because the temperature itself wasn't that cold. It was those wind chill values. But we did top out with a high of -6. Although that happened around 1 a.m., and then for the rest of the day, the temperature just dropped. And with those strong wind gusts at times up to 63 kilometers per hour, it's no surprise we had some drifting snow. But at this hour, Thunder Bay is at -11, and those wind chill values, because the winds continue to blow, make it feel a little bit closer to about -21. A little bit cooler to the west. Fort Frances is still seeing some light snow. Their wind chill values are at about -24. Greenstone feels a little closer to -20. And even Sault Ste. Marie, right now, -5. Their wind chills make it feel like about -12, -13. So despite the temperatures that you see pretty much across the board, everybody is experiencing wind chill values a good 10 degrees below what the temperatures would otherwise indicate. Now, Thunder Bay is going to see the temperatures continue to drop over the next few hours. A low of -16 is expected, and with winds from the west tapering off a little bit, it's still probably going to be whistling outside your window and causing wind chill values to be close to -28. And unfortunately, Friday, if you didn't like those cold temperatures today, you're going to have to do it all over again. If you did like it, well, I've got great news. You don't have to shovel. And we are going to see a little bit of sunshine. So tomorrow, I guess if you can handle the cold, not such a bad day after all for the last day of the work week. But I'll have more details on what you can plan for the weekend. It's later on in the news hour.
Thanks, Fiona. The world is in mourning following the death of Nelson Mandela today. Stay with us. That story's coming up after the break.
If not more, $150,000 in a car. That's an outright lie.
South Africa's president says this is the moment of our deepest sorrow. Jacob Zuma has announced the death of Nelson Mandela, telling South Africans and the world that the nation has lost its greatest son. The living legend and former president was 95. Adrian Arsenault has a look at a remarkable life.
In one of the many panicky moments over the years when an elderly Nelson Mandela's health failed and people prayed, Bishop Desmond Tutu asked, what more does the world want from this man? What the world wanted was that this day would never come. that the Mandela of the big, broad smile and bigger, broader hopes wouldn't leave a world that still needed him. A man who knew privilege in his youth but didn't take it for granted. Activist, lawyer, 6'2", 245-pound strapping boxer. A man who initially felt so strongly that to hit back was wrong. His enemy was poverty and the cruelty of apartheid. But it was peaceful negotiations he first believed were the only real solutions. This was his very first television interview.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and nonviolence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people.
He too started to ask whether peaceful protest in the face of such vicious aggression made any sense. So he tried a different strategy, economic sabotage. That infuriated South African authorities. They hunted Mandela for 18 months. Then they charged him with treason, sentenced him to life in prison. In 1964, he disappeared behind bars for 27 years, most spent on notorious Robben Island. Working in the blistering sun and the chalk mines would damage his eyes. Tuberculosis scarred his lungs. His body became fragile. His resolve did not. As he sat and dreamt of reconciliation, the world started to roar. End apartheid. Free Nelson Mandela. Now. The calls could not be ignored. And in 1990, the once young, strong boxer was released, emerging as a slow-moving statesman, blinking into the bright light of freedom.
And a salute from Mr. Nelson Mandela, greeting the people outside the fences of the Victor Verster prison.
Legendary crowds struggled to hear the very first words from a man who had every right to be angry, yet wasn't.
Africa!
It was not easy, it was not seamless, but he made it happen. Apartheid ended. He and F.W. de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize. And then Nelson Mandela became the first black president in South Africa's first democratic election.
Free at last.
He was, of course, not just South Africa's Mandela, but the world's Mandela, called on to help resolve African political conflicts.
And my son has died of AIDS.
To break the stigma of AIDS by talking of his own son's death, to fight for the eradication of poverty, to be the worn but ever hopeful face of reconciliation. His nation always came first, often at the expense of his own family and most certainly his own comfort. In the end, Nelson Mandela simply belonged to too many. Adrienne Arsenault, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto Mayor Rob Ford is back in the spotlight after the release of new documents. They include police wiretaps of alleged gang members talking about Ford and the potential value of that infamous crack video. Ron Charles reports.
Mayor Ford, did you try to buy the video?
Rob Ford refused to discuss the revelations in the newest pile of police surveillance documents a judge released yesterday.
Did you try and buy the video, Mayor Ford?
The previously redacted pages are police summaries of wiretap conversations between alleged gang members. Police detectives listening in on one conversation in March surmised that gang members were referring to Ford when talking about a man offering $5,000 in a car in exchange for the video of Ford smoking from a crack pipe. The gang members felt the video was worth at least $150,000. Even Ford's favorite subject, football, was no escape from questions about the new revelations. He agreed to talk about the game to a Washington, D.C. sports radio station, but the host had other questions.
You offered $5,000, if not more, $150,000 in a car.
That's an outright lie. And number two, you can talk to my lawyers about it.
In a telephone interview, his lawyer, Dennis Morris, explained why Ford isn't speaking.
Since his voice was never heard in any of thousands and thousands of conversations over a 3-month period, I don't think he consorted with these individuals as the media indicates.
Other revelations from the new documents include police overhearing gang members talking about Ford doing other drugs, including heroin. Toronto police have taken pains to explain why, even with these wiretaps, Ford has not been charged.
You can't charge in these sort of offenses based on past admissions. You need evidence
And I can tell you that the investigators in this case have met with senior Crowns on a regular basis to ensure that everything that is done exactly by the book.
Ford spent his day charging through the horde of reporters clamoring for answers, offering only a grin. Ron Charles, CBC News, Toronto.
A funeral was held today for one of the 4 Canadian soldiers believed to have committed suicide during the last 10 days. Warrant Officer Michael McNeil's family believes the Afghan war vet suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Stephen Punneycombe reports.
He was a family man first. He was a hero second to this country.
Kevin McNeil talks to reporters about his brother and about PTSD.
It's a boiling pot that's just going to overflow. There's not really going to be any stop to it.
Hundreds crammed the Truro Armories, a room more accustomed to floor hockey games than funerals. There was song, there were prayers, and there were poems. This one by McNeil's aunt, read by his uncle Barry Mellish.
The worst of wounds, he tells me, are those that cannot be seen. They're often found in a soldier, who some forgot too are human beings.
Mellish lost his own son, Frank, in 2006 while serving in Afghanistan. Michael McNeil's parents say their son suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. He was a 19-year veteran. He served in Bosnia, Kosovo, and 2 tours in Afghanistan. He was a reconnaissance officer, a very stressful, dangerous job, scouting out the enemy behind the front lines. Kendra Mellish, another family member, spoke eloquently. She told Michael's children they should keep their father close to their heart because he is a hero. And then she made a plea to the crowd at the Truro Armories. She says she's sure some people in this audience need help, like Michael did.
You are suffering in silence. There is no need to suffer. There is help out there. Go get help.
Stephen Punneycombe, CBC News, Truro, Nova Scotia.
The Prime Minister's special envoy on West Coast energy says Ottawa must change the way it deals with First Nations. Otherwise, it says billions of dollars of oil and gas pipelines are at risk. Chris Brown reports.
So this is the start of the reserve. That's where we put it.
The signs of opposition in many parts of northern BC these days are vivid examples of the strained relationship between First Nations, the energy industry, and most of all, the federal government.
You know what would be helpful is if the government, our own government, quits making us out to be the bad guy.
With tens of billions of dollars of oil and natural gas projects on the line, the Prime Minister hired veteran land claims negotiator Doug Aford to try to find a way forward.
It's never too late to engage and to
Aford is suggesting a relationship
do so.
reboot. His report says energy projects should be discussed with First Nations in the context of settling land claims and self-government, and he chided Ottawa for using adversarial forums such as the National Energy Board hearings as a substitute.
The Aboriginal communities view natural resource developments as linked to a broader agenda of reconciliation.
The Natural Resources Minister said he accepts the criticism, but didn't say what precisely would change.
I can assure you that our government has these messages clearly in mind.
To illustrate just how strained things have become, opponents of the proposed Northern Gateway oil pipeline to Kitimat held a rival event today, and they used some intimidating language to describe the extent of First Nations opposition.
I guess it'll make Idle No More look like an afternoon tea.
With a report from the National Energy Board due this month, it may be too late for Aford's recommendations to improve the tone on the Northern Gateway, but perhaps, he says, other projects can benefit from a better conversation. Chris Brown, CBC News, Vancouver.
In New York, a bright holiday tradition.
In most of America, minimum wage puts any one-income household of more than 2 people.
This is the annual lighting of the Christmas tree in Rockefeller Center last night. The 75-year-old Norway spruce was donated from a family in Connecticut. It stands 22 meters high and has more than 45,000 multicolored lights. topped with a Swarovski crystal star. Beautiful.
Pretty.
Turn to the markets now. In Toronto, the TSX dropped over 100 points to 13,200. The Dow fell 68 points to 15,821. And the Nasdaq slipped about 5 points to 40.33. The Canadian dollar was up 1/3 cent to 93.98 cents US. Gold fell $15 to $1,231 an ounce, and oil held steady at $97 a barrel.
Well, curling fanatics are getting more and more excited as things come down to the wire. Now we're getting into clinching for playoff spots.
Yeah, 3 draws a day, about almost 12 hours of curling a day, and we're finally getting to crunch time.
Yeah, and I'm sure my sister-in-law is thrilled for 12 hours a day of
Oh
curling.
yes, as is my mom.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there's a big battle tonight at the Roar of the Rings in Winnipeg. Kevin Martin will play Sault Ste. Marie's Brad Jacobs. The winner of that earns a berth in Sunday's championship game. Last night, Jennifer Jones beat Rachel Homan to earn a spot in the women's finals set for Saturday night. This afternoon, Manitoba's Chelsea Carey breaks on top against Ontario's Sherry Maddaw, but last rock in the second. She'll hit and roll back for it's a deuce, and that would open up the scoring 2-0. Maddaw in 3 with a hammer. Could score a 3 with the nose hit, but watch it rub off a rock. It will settle back to the 4-foot for the deuce, and we've got a tie game at 2. Maddaw will head to the break with her first lead. It's a test of her draw weight, and she will place the shooter in the rings for the deuce, and that will give her a 4-3 lead. But Carey, who could clinch a semifinal berth with a win, will fall further behind in the 7th as she tries to double takeout, but she'll miss, giving up a steal of 1 as Maddaw went up 6-3. Madaw would end up winning that one 7-6. So both those rinks are at 4 and 3, and both are likely headed to a tiebreaker. Well, Jeff Curry and Brian Adams Jr. share a top spot at 8-2 with the men's Major League of Curling. Adams beat Krista McCarville's rank 8-3 last night, while Curry topped Leanne Fossum 6-1. And your 7th-ranked Lakehead University Thunderwolves are off until after Christmas when they welcome Laurentian for a 2-game Christmas Challenge series beginning December 27th at the Gardens. Now here's Ryan Benazzo with this week's Player Profile.
This Thunderwolves Player Profile is brought to you by Frankie's Pizzeria. Pickup or delivery.
Mike Hammond is up to his old tricks once again this season. The third-year forward leads the Wolves in points, and his line, which includes Jake Carrick and Kellen Ainsworth, has accounted for 39 points through 14 games.
I like to think it's because of hard work. We're consistent every day of coming in practice, working hard, trying to follow that into a game, and we all connect well. We all got different skills, so it's working out well.
Hammond's skills include some nifty stick work. Nearly every game, the Victoria, BC native does something to bring the crowd to its feet and to make everyone wonder, how'd he do that? So was this skill learned, or did it come naturally?
No, it didn't come naturally at all. A lot of work. I got 2 older brothers, so I was always out playing with them. I play a lot of roller hockey and ball hockey in the summer, which also helps the skill set. Roller hockey is all skill. It's a possession game. You got the puck on your stick most of the game. And ball hockey is a lot of hand-eye coordination and whatnot with the ball bouncing around.
He says he's already got plans to get his brothers and some friends together for a game when he goes home for Christmas. It's something he encourages all young players to get into. He says the only trick to becoming a great stick handler is to spend as much time as possible with a hockey stick in your hands.
Just work every day. I mean, nothing comes easy. I'm always out in the summer stick handling pucks, shooting pucks, so it's comfortability. The more you got a stick in your hand, the more comfortable you're going to be.
Hammond can get back to making his CIS opponents uncomfortable on December 27th. When the Wolves host the Laurentian Voyageurs as part of the annual Christmas Challenge at the Fort William Gardens.
This Thunderwolves Player Profile was brought to you by Frankie's Pizzeria. Fresh is better.
10 games in the NHL tonight featuring 5 Canadian teams. Ottawa battles Tampa Bay. The Leafs look to snap a 5-game slide at home against Dallas. Winnipeg's in Florida. Montreal entertains Boston. And Colorado visits Edmonton last night. New Jersey. The Devils take a 2-1 lead. Midway mark of the period, the Devils take the lead. Reed Boucher with his first NHL point, setting up Michael Ryder, the former Hab, with his 7th. Then the Canadians tied only to see PK Subban turn it over, and it's Patrick Elias making him pay. That was the go-ahead goal with just over a minute left, but the Devils can't clear. Final minute, Brian Gianna's floater will tie it up at 3. And then it's David Desharnais going from the doghouse to the penthouse as he makes a nice move in tight to give the Habs the 4-3 shootout victory. In Calgary, Captain Mark Giordano celebrates his return to the lineup with a goal as his team turns back Phoenix 4-1. And in Detroit, the Wings blow a 3-1 lead. Sean Couturier had 4 points, including a pair of goals as the Flyers double up the Wings 6-3 the final. CFL news, the expansion Ottawa Red Blacks will name Calgary defensive coordinator Rick Campbell as their new head coach. He is the son of legendary CFL coach Hugh Campbell, who won a boatload of Grey Cups with the Edmonton Eskimos. Former Bombers head coach Tim Burke is the new defensive coordinator of the Toronto Argonauts, while the Double Blue lost special teams coach Mike O'Shea. He's the new head coach in Winnipeg.
Loud applause and a standing ovation from fans. With music blaring, the Bombers introduced Mike O'Shea as the club's 30th head coach.
That's quite a reception. I appreciate that.
The 43-year-old is moving his family here from Ontario, where he was the Argonauts special teams coordinator for the last 4 years.
Over the middle, it's picked off. Michael O'Shea.
But before that, O'Shea played the game for Toronto and Hamilton for 16 years. Experience, he says, will help turn this struggling franchise around.
And I'm not afraid to try something that maybe other coaches don't try.
I wasn't going to renew my tickets.
Die-hard fan Werner Roller was thinking of canceling his season tickets after the dismal 3-15 season, but now hopes O'Shea will bring toughness to the team.
I've changed my whole thinking of the team.
The Bombers won't say how season ticket sales are pacing, saying they have no idea how many have been sold or renewed. Some season ticket holders still need convincing.
We have good players, and I hope he motivates them to be good players.
Former Bomber Doug Brown says fans will see O'Shea will make all the difference.
He brings something to the table you haven't seen here for a while.
Often dressed casually on the sidelines, O'Shea says he'll do whatever it takes to win.
Because I'm going to wear whatever outfit allows me to win.
His goal, getting a 5th Grey Cup ring. Lorraine Nickel, Global News.
Well, based on their 27-point win over New Orleans this week, the Seattle Seahawks appear to be a pretty good bet to represent the NFC come Super Bowl time. In their only other appearance 8 years ago, they lost to Pittsburgh, but with the loudest fans in the NFL, the Seahawks are primed to win it all this season. Jay Durant has their story.
Are relentless. The 12th man was asked to bring the noise on Monday night. That's never a problem. They've reclaimed the Guinness Book stamp of approval for the loudest crowd in sports history. Clearly, this is a place other teams do not want to visit in the postseason.
Our crowd was unbelievable tonight. They broke the world record again. So just the energy in the stadium, you can literally feel the ground shaking. So it makes a huge difference.
Seattle has now won 14 straight at CenturyLink Field. Their magic number to clinch home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs is 2. And wins over the Saints and Panthers this year means they hold the tiebreaker over both of their closest pursuers. And the way they beat the Saints, the way they dominated them in the biggest game of the season, the rest of the league has been served notice.
The defense to hold that quarterback, that coach, and that team to that kind of a production night, that's an incredible night for our guys. And the really cool thing is we didn't do anything special. We did what we like doing and the way we want to play.
Pressure coming, he gets rid of it for Harvin.
And they're still not playing with a full lineup. Percy Harvin's hip troubles have flared up again. He's a weapon they'll deploy down the stretch.
Another interception.
Walter Thurman will return from suspension for the final week of the regular season. So any opposition planning a trip out of the NFC this year, that road runs through the Pacific Northwest.
So we're a playoff team, which is great to know that. But that's not what that's not our goal. We don't talk that way. You never hear these guys say, "Oh boy, we want to get in the playoffs." You know, that's not the goal we set. You know, we want to win this division, and that division gets us a chance to play at home, and that's what we're after. And then we'll talk about what comes next.
Seattle touchdown.
Jay Durant, Global Sports.
And an early start to another week of the NFL, and you don't want to pay a lot of money to see this one. It's a good thing if you got cable, because it's Houston at Jacksonville, two of the worst teams in the league. Meanwhile, former NFL quarterback Tim Tebow has been offered a 4-month contract to play football for the Milano Seamen in Italy. He's been offered $200,000. $200,000 for 4 months of work.
Pretty
It's
good.
nice if you can find
Pretty
it.
good. I would say so. All right. Well, if, the snow wasn't quite enough to get you into the Christmas mood, we've got a little bit of a Christmas special for you to kick off our lineup tonight with more. Here's Teletalk.
Tonight on Global Thunder Bay, starting at 8, Hoops and Yo-Yo ruin Christmas as they try to catch Santa in the act. Then at 8:30, it's The Millers, and Nathan discovers that Debbie is Dad's favorite. At 9 on Glee, the kids audition for a live nativity, and the New Yorkers score jobs with Santa. And at 10 on Elementary, Holmes must testify when an investigation goes horribly wrong. Over on CKPR Thunder Bay at 8, The Nature of Things explains how and why we get lost. At 9 on Mission Asteroid, the threat is real, and so are the heroes who will stop it. And at 11:35, George talks with Canadian heavyweight champ George Chuvalo. Teletalk is brought to you by Points, the traffic ticket specialists.
We've seen a fair amount of snow over the past few days. Now it's getting cold, Fiona, but nothing compared to what we're seeing out west.
Yes, it is cold, colder, and coldest. So today, when we topped out with a high of -6, yeah, it was a little cold, but the temperatures were dropping. We had drifting snow and winds gusting up to -63. That's why the temperature dropped all day. That's when it got colder. But if you want to see coldest, this is why we head to the west. Vancouver has barely cracked the freezing mark today. They're sitting at 0 right now. As we head into Alberta, another very cold day. Edmonton currently at -23, -22 in Calgary, both with a little bit of snow. And once again, all of these temperatures that I'm showing you with the wind chill, it feels a good 10 degrees colder than what these temperatures would indicate. And if you really, really want to talk about the coldest, Saskatoon hit a high of -24. And right now, when you factor in the wind chill, it feels like -37. Ironically, it's Regina that is in a wind chill warning, and areas south of Regina into southern Saskatchewan, they are expecting wind chill values to be -40 for tonight and into Friday. Now, as we head into Winnipeg, they're currently at -17, cloudy skies. Temperatures have been dropping all day in Winnipeg, as has been the case for Thunder Bay. They're expecting more snow for Friday. And for southern Ontario, we've got a complete reversal. Basically from Toronto and areas eastward, temperatures are going up. So Toronto currently at 3 Celsius, partly cloudy and a pretty windy day. Ottawa hit a high of 9. Yes, it will be a little cooler tomorrow, but a high of 9. I'm going to say it again, 9. Wow. Okay. Quebec City currently sitting on the freezing mark. They've had light rain and drizzle all day. And then as we head into the Maritimes, very consistent conditions. It's been mainly cloudy pretty much throughout New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Nova Scotia. And temperatures hovering from about -1 to 2 Celsius. However, tonight temperatures are going to be warming up. And we're looking at about 7 in Halifax, 9 in Fredericton and Charlottetown by the early morning hours. So this is a very unusual pattern in the temperature. St. John's currently sitting on the freezing mark with cloudy skies. They could see some light snow tonight, but they too are going to see a warm up by late on Friday. Now, if we take a look at what's been going on through the region, we had that light snow for much of today. It's going to linger to the north for tomorrow, but it is heading out for the weekend, for Saturday, and might see a few spots where they'll see some snow squalls in the Sault Ste. Marie area for the first half of the weekend. Temperature, wind-wise, you can see where it's fairly gusty. These are the wind gusts that from low 30s to low 40 kilometer per hour winds, and that's going to continue for much of the night. It's going to start to taper off to about 20 to 30 kilometers per hour for Friday, and by Friday night we get down into the lower range, 10 to 20 kilometers per hour. So another 24 hours of some pretty gusty winds. Temperature-wise, well, let's face it, it's cold. There's potential for snow up towards Red Lake, and wind chill values drop another 10 degrees on these temperatures, and you'll know what it feels like. Tomorrow might see a little bit of sunshine for the Fort Frances area and for Thunder Bay. Little bit of light snow for Sault Ste. Marie and snow to areas north. At this hour, we're at -11, feels like -21, and there's a lot of drifting snow continuing. Tonight, a low of -16, which will feel like -28, and you are going to start the day with, ta-da, that -28 wind chill. So be ready to warm up your car and bundle up. We're looking at a high of -10 on Friday. That wind chill will feel like -21. Some sunny breaks on Saturday with a high of -11, -8 by Sunday. Good news, no wind, so no wind chill, but that we are looking at a little bit more snow on Monday, and then another very cold day on Tuesday.
It's time for a weekly visit to the Thunder Bay and District Humane Society, where we get to meet Grayson, a 7-year-old cat.
Hi, this week's Humane Society Pet of the Week is a big fellow. His name, very aptly, is Grayson, and Grayson is a 7-year-old domestic long hair who is a real majestic soul. He's very mellow, but very sweet and kind. He's not a big tough guy at all. He's more of a gentle giant. He could stand to lose a few pounds, but other than that, he is very sweet, very friendly, and would get along with other cats. We're not sure about dogs, but if you have a home where you would have a place for him to curl up and enjoy, come meet Grayson today.
Has been brought to you by Thunder Pet. Expert advice and high-quality pet food within your budget.
Well, sticking with animals after the break, we have some amazing video to show you of an emu. That's next. You've heard the saying before, it takes two to tango. Well, in this case, it takes two emus and one weasel ball. The large birds in this video face off against what looks to them like a sneaky enemy. They even bring in some backup, an ostrich, but in the end, the weasel ball prevails. fun. We're going to recap our top story now. Well, the James Street Swing Bridge will remain closed for at least another 3 months. That's after meetings today between the chief of the Fort William First Nation and CN Rail officials.
And the Roar of the Rings continues tonight in Winnipeg. It's a battle of unbeaten ranks as Brad Jacobs goes up against Kevin Martin. The winner of that gets a bye to Sunday night's final. And the good news is you're going to get a break to soak and relax those sore muscles from shoveling the last 24 hours. The bad news is it's going to be cold over the next few days. Give yourself some extra time first thing in the morning. -28 wind chill.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a good night.